All right, everybody, hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Jake Larson, here with my amazing co-host, Clint Berry, and we have an old friend. Clint worked with him a long time ago. I have heard rumors of the legend of Vince Dilley for a while, and we're really excited to hear about his story. Clint, since you've known Vince longer than I have and know more about his background, why don't you give us a quick intro of who Vince is and welcome him to the show?
Yeah, I would love to, and I really appreciate you being here, Vince. We hadn't talked for a long time, and got reconnected by a mutual friend, and I was like, "Oh, this is great." But back in college days, we worked for a company that sold Dish Network and Comcast door to door. And Vince obviously was this rising star there. Everyone loved him. He's got that type of charisma where he's just like super salesman. And when that company basically tanked, Vince ended up at a recall service for dental. I'll just call it that. He'll give a little bit more detail. This is the part that I think is funny. And we were just talking about this before the recording started. But my co-founder at Weave, Brandon, basically heard this idea from Vince, where you call overdue patients. You have a call center, and you get paid to reschedule people that are overdue. And so he totally took Vince's idea and made his own competing company to where Vince ended up. And I just thought it was so fun. At the time, I was like, dude, this is kind of a jerk move. But what I didn't understand then is like there was like 150,000 dental offices in the U.S. at the time, and I was like, "Oh, this market's massive." So there's plenty of dentists to go around. But I just thought it was funny. Brandon will never hear this. I talk to Brandon like probably every other day, but he'll never listen to his podcast, so he'll never know that I accused him of ripping it off. We all knew it was true, Vince.
Well, I wish it was my idea. It wasn't even my idea. So it was actually my sister's, but brought us all together here. 15, what was that? 15 years later, something like that.
Yeah. And it's funny to see, like, so you guys both had a similar company. We had Recall Solutions, or Brandon had Recall Solutions, and then you had your, your call center software. And I think part of it is because call center was so big in the space, in the Dish Network space where you guys came from. So you knew the whole tech space in call centers. And so this was just another application to that. But then you took this different journey into this DSO space, and now a CEO of Platinum Dental Services, right? And Brandon went the software route, and so you went two different routes, and you've now both seen massive success. It's so fun to see. I'm super happy about it. I'm excited to hear more details about your story here, and I think this is something that could really help other people thinking about DSO. I'm sure you'll tell them not to start a DSO, but also just that there's other ways to do this besides private equity and like the standard path. So I'm excited to talk to you about that.
Yeah. Well, thanks
for joining us, Vince.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
So that explains a little bit of why or how you landed in the industry. Anything you want to add to that story? There might be some other details.
No, I mean, that sounds great. It was fun to reconnect with Clint and to see what you guys have done at Weave. And when your software first came out, I was looking at it. I was like, that's a really cool idea. I think it's even more intriguing. I know you guys aren't at Weave anymore, but it's even more intriguing to me today with the introduction of AI. I think there's probably a lot that can probably be leveraged from what you guys created over there, but kind of in a more native AI space. So just hats off to you guys. You guys have done some amazing things in dentistry, and I just love collaborating with people who are doing good for our industry like you guys are.
We're excited to hear about the success that you have built at Platinum Dental Services. So we touched base a little bit about your background, how you got into dental. So let's pivot and talk about how did Platinum Dental Services get started from that kind of call center-based recall service to now where you are today. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, the name of the company is Platinum Dental Services. This will tell you how creative I am or how uncreative I am. Is our call center business was called Platinum Recall. And so when I pivoted and bought a dental practice, I was like, I don't know what to call it. And so I called it Platinum Dental, right? And just kind of rode with that. So I actually bought that company, the Platinum Recall business, from an investor who had bought it from my sister. My sister started the company, built it up, sold it in about 18 months. And then I approached that guy after Clint and I's company tanked. I approached that guy about doing sales for the reactivation business. And he's just like, well, why don't you just buy this thing from me? He had lost like half the clients, from like 30 to 15 clients or whatever it was, and he says, why don't you buy it from me? I was like, because I've got like $2,500 in my bank account and I'm living in my parents' basement. And he's just like, no way. He's like, well, he says, if you give me your $2,500 as a down payment, I'll seller finance it to you. I was like, what's seller financing? I didn't know. What are you talking about? Like, I was a poor kid from Magna. I didn't know that, you could buy a business with no money essentially. And so worked out monthly payments for him to buy that business from him on an interest only, I think 4.5% interest when I bought it from him.
Wow.
And ran that company we ran it from 2010 all the way through COVID, but from 2010 to 2012. And then I was out just knocking doors one day trying to sell these services. And I went to this dental practice, and these two guys who weren't dentists owned this practice. And I was just like, you can own a dental practice without being a dentist, And they're like, well, kind of, but not really. And they explained the whole DSO thing to me. So I was like, I'm going to go buy a dental office. But again, I had no money. And so I found a practice that was doing like $200,000 a year in revenue, and negotiated a deal. I'd squirreled away $20,000 in silver coins, and I negotiated a deal, $20,000 down payment and a seller financing note of $180,000. And the dentist said, yeah, let's do it. And so we bought it. And so I think the origin story was, I bought whatever I could buy with no money, and that was struggling practices. It was practices that nobody else wanted, and the strategy was plug it into the patient reactivation business, start reactivating patients, and turn it around. And I'd love to say it was that easy. It wasn't that easy, but ultimately that was the strategy from the outset.
Wow.
I did not know this about it. That's like you got seller-based financing for the first company, and then basically did the same thing for your first dental. Like, why did the dentist want to sell us? Was he getting older? Like, what? I don't understand how that happened.
At the time, he just had his practice listed for sale.
He was just interested in selling.
He just wasn't achieving. $200,000 a year.
Yeah, that's a super small practice.
It doesn't even keep the lights on, right? Break even is going to be $700,000 a year or so. And so, we're way off. And, so when I first started, acquiring these offices, they were doing $200,000 and $300,000 a year in revenue. So I literally took them from essentially quasi de novo stage through the inflection points of $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, right? And so, and at every one of those different inflection points, you have different challenges. And, that's very typical as a doctor will get a practice to $1 million, maybe $1.5 million, but then just stay there because the work and the effort and the challenge and the new systems that need to be operated and implemented to grow to that next stage are just, overwhelming. They now got to run the business instead of being in the chair doing dentistry. And oftentimes they make less money doing it. Right. And so, for us, we found just this niche of practices that had untapped potential and, buying them. But yeah, I bought, 30, 35 practices on seller financing.
Wow.
Jeez.
Well, this is why we're so excited to have you, Vince, on this. We talked about dental disruptors, and we're trying to find these disruptive technologies and best practices. And this is such a different story than what most DSOs are doing. Most of them are maybe cherry picking, looking for the optimal practice to buy. And you're doing the opposite. You're finding these underperforming practices and have a different playbook to turn those around. So, have you? I imagine it's changed over the years, right? The first one, you bought an underperforming practice because that's probably what the opportunity was. But why have you kind of stayed on that path and continued to acquire those underperforming practices instead of doing what other DSOs might be doing?
Yeah, so very much it was just like opportunistic to begin with, right? But as we've grown up and we've scaled up, we've moved upstream a little bit. We're not really buying practices that are doing $200,000 and $300,000 a year in revenue anymore. At that point in time, we'll just do it de novo, like we'll just open a practice. But we move it upstream to where they're doing $700,000, $800,000, maybe up to $1.5 million. But we view unlocked potential within that practice, and so. I wouldn't even say that they're necessarily struggling as much as there's a bunch of unlocked potential in those practices. And so, that's what we do now. And, why we've done it. Well, one, there's very low competition for acquiring those practices, right? As you pointed out, there's really high competition among the premier practices in the industry. And so what you've seen the last few years is a lot of DSOs, a lot of groups in the pursuit of growth have really gotten out over their skis in terms of leverage, right? They're paying 6, 7, 8 times EBITDA. I've heard as much as 10 times EBITDA for a single location. And so the balance sheet just gets super levered. And if you take the collective group of practices we've acquired through last year and put a multiple of what their current day's EBITDA is today and what we paid for it, it's under 2 times. It's like, I think it's just under 1.5 times. Wow. Right. And so like we pay relative to what we're able to do with it. But the reason it is, it is 1.5 times is because we've created the EBITDA along the way. We didn't buy the EBITDA for some, inflated multiple because everybody's trying to buy it. We're buying stuff that nobody else wants and then growing them. And then our balance sheet is very attractive and under levered, which gives us a lot of room to grow and deploy capital in a highly efficient way. So it's about as capital efficient as it can be, I think, in our space. And so we don't want to abandon that. We're now doing 20 new partnerships a year, acquiring 20 locations a year now. And so we're running at a faster speed, yet still performing at that post-closing kind of operational performance. We're still ramping these things. 30% in the first 90 days is kind of our target. Is we want to get 30% run rate growth within the first 90 days of partnering with a new practice. So
wow, so fast.
I feel like if you were on Shark Tank, Mark Cuban would be like,
he'd be like
clapping for you.
Yeah, this would be like right up his alley. I mean, without giving the secret sauce away, though, like, how do you identify a practice where you're like, hey, this practice has a lot of potential?
Yeah.
Can you even answer that without giving the secret sauce away?
No, it's a great question. Like, I've never held my cards close to my vest on this stuff because it's way harder to do it than to know what to do, right? Knowing what to do, particularly in this world of AI, is just like information's free, So happy to share anything and everything. But, for us, it's all about that hygiene base, right? Like, what is the volume of patients? Like, people will get in there and they want to dicker over like, oh, I got to replace this chair, replace this server. And we don't really even look at that stuff. It's just like, we know we're going to have upgrades, we're going to have deferred maintenance, we're going to upgrade, so we go in there, at least at this point in time, with knowing we've got to do a lot of upgrades on the equipment side, but what does the patient base actually look like? So my ideal practice is one that is under capturing the opportunity for the patient base that they have. So if they have 800 patients scheduled in future hygiene, that's the number that we look at. It's ironic because as we look at that number, all the brokers say, well, nobody's ever asked for this number. I was just like, that's the only number I actually care about. And so how many patients are scheduled in future hygiene? And if it's 800 or more, I know that's a 2-doctor practice, at least a doctor and a half to 2-doctor practice. So the big lever of growth is we partner with a practice that already has the existing patient base. Our marketing team's phenomenal. I don't have to worry about them. They're going to get us new patients. But the existing patient base is enough to be able to bring in another doctor. And then going back to the call center days, there's a long list of patients who do not have current appointments. We plug that into the call center, and they start reactivating patients as soon as we close on that practice. So
that's awesome,
dude. It's a freaking machine. You just built a machine. It's awesome. I love to hear these types of stories because if you get for our listeners, if you look at Vince's background, where he came from, of call centers, door-to-door sales, growing small businesses, his brain is it's a growth mindset of marketing and selling. And he's laying that on top of these underperforming practices. There's tons of leads to operate under. And he just has a formula to just rinse and repeat and activate that base of clients and of patients and just explode. It's amazing.
And he didn't have capital to start and couldn't get capital to start. And he figured out a way to do it without capital.
So cool.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we got told no by banks for years, right? Like, because giving up equity wasn't really an option. Like, I wasn't going to do that. So I would rather grow slower and retain the equity and grow the business than go get hyper funded and dilute myself and maybe it works out. It's like I knew that we were building something of value. But we did want debt financing. We did want to grow. We got told no from banks forever. And in my experience, at least, when you want money from banks, you can't get it. And then all of a sudden banks are lining up to give you money and you don't need it. And
totally.
Kind of in my experience.
That's awesome. So tell us more about the call center stuff. Is that still a big part of your operation today? Is like a centralized scheduling call center type setup?
Yeah. Yeah, so as we've developed our support services over the years, I think it's really important for you to decide, who you're going to be and what you're going to do, right? From a support services standpoint, because in the end, you can't bring value to dentists. You're living on an arbitrage opportunity only, right? And the truth of the matter is, if you want a lasting, successful business, you've got to bring value to your doctors and your doctor partners. And so for us, that's kind of how we've always looked at it. And I kind of see a divergence of two DSOs forming in the space. And I know not all of them fit in this, but a good chunk do, which is, some of them want to centralize everything, right? They centralize everything, but then they're operating like 20% corporate overhead. And basically, you're stripping all the profits out of the practices to support the machine that's providing support services. And I tend to see those groups having a little bit more organic growth capabilities because of those support services. But then you see the other side of the spectrum where there's a really thin layer of support, and they're all operating on different practice management softwares. They're aggregating the best and highest performing practices, and pretty low corporate overhead expense because there's low value additive support services being offered, right? They're doing accounting and finance and payroll and all the table stakes, but nothing that actually drives the organic growth of the business. And so you see kind of the divergence of these two things. And my formula for determining is the DSO well ran or not is what do those support services cost, and what is the output of those support services from an organic growth perspective? What is the same store growth rate of those practices year over year for the portfolio? What does that cost you? And so for us, and I'm getting back to your question here, which is we've been very judicious about what we centralize and what we don't centralize. We're only going to centralize support services that have a true economies of scale and drive significant value. And for us, our portfolio grows 10% same store growth year after year after year, 10 to 13%. We have for years. For more than a decade now. Last year we did, this year we will. And those support services cost us under 8% of the revenue to do that. So it's quite efficient relative to, I think, what's out there. And ultimately, that's what drives the capital efficiency. So when it comes to the call center, what we found was there were two vital parts that we felt like we really got a lot of value out of centralizing. The first one was what we already knew how to do, which was outbound phone calls and reactivations. And we didn't want that to be the exclusive effort in doing that. So all the practices are expected and required to call their overdue hygiene patients and get them to come back in. And the support service center, the call center, provides those services in a supplemental fashion. They'll do 20 or 30 or 40 reactivations a month, but the practice is expected to do just as many. And then the other part is new patient conversion. Practices are notorious for missing phone calls and being distracted when they answer those new patient phone calls. So we have a call tree, and all of our new patient phone calls go into an inbound call team who are highly specialized in converting those into new appointments. They answer in under 3 seconds. They convert it at 85% rate, and we answer 88 to 90% of all the calls that come through the call center, which in the call center world are very attractive metrics. And we've just found those are the two biggest value additive services. And then we didn't want to outsource the existing patient relationship. So all of existing patients, when they call in, it says press 1 if you're a new patient, press 2 if you're an existing patient. All existing patients get routed to the office, and the office answers those calls. If they miss it, it'll roll to the call center, and we'll capture it there. So if there's a secret sauce, that's the structure of it. Executing on those systems and training the people side of that is where the magic actually happens, but that's how we do it.
That's pretty amazing. I love it. I'm trying to, my mind is spinning. And I think I talked to you a little bit when I talked to you on the phone last week. Is your whole model is going to change over the next 5 years, at least from what you centralize or how you centralize it, right? Because of AI. And maybe it's like you said, it's maybe a little bit more supplemental to start, but there's a chance in the next 5 years you're getting even better. Like you said, you're putting 8% of revenue in, you're getting 12, 13% growth out of that. It could be that you're only putting in 4% of revenue over the next 5 years and still getting the same growth rate. Does that sound like it's possible to get that type of efficiency out of AI, or am I up in the night?
Absolutely, 100%. We are leaning into AI in every way that we can. I mean, it's very quickly become kind of a scenario of competing priorities because we can apply AI in so many places. What do we prioritize? And so the way we're prioritizing that is what are our biggest cost functions from an administrative burden standpoint, from a support center standpoint. and what are the workflows around that, and then we're designing agents to execute on those workflows so that we can reduce the administrative burden that it requires to drive that kind of growth. So you're spot on. We're 8% annually on corporate overhead. We expect over the next 3 to 4 years, maybe even sooner, to be down to 5%, potentially lower than that. And so AI is so good. It's really a matter of but we're also trying to add 20 locations a year. So we're not looking to do like a massive head reduction in our organization right now. We're redesigning workflows, because what we'll find is there's products out there, or we're developing products that will address 60% of a full-time employee's workflow, but it's not 100%. It's not like we deploy the AI and that's one head saved, right? We now have to redesign that workflow for those groups of agents, because 60% of their jobs being done by AI now. But now we just freed up 60% of their time, so we can have 20 locations a year without adding any heads. And as a percentage of our revenue, our corporate expense is going to come way down.
Yeah. So exciting. I think because of the way you structured things, because of the things that you centralized, you are in a position more unique to benefit from AI than a lot of others. So you're set up for success, which is really exciting for you. I'm excited for you, and now I'm excited because after 13, 15 years, or whatever it was, bootstrapping, now you actually brought in some outside capital, right? So that's how you guys are going to pull off these 20 locations a year.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah, we brought in our private equity partner September, August 30th of last year, and it's been phenomenal. It's been an amazing experience for me, and we're accelerating the rate of acquisitions with that capital product.
So cool. So cool.
Wow. Congrats, Vince. It's amazing. I'm sure it has been easy.
Yeah. That's kind of what I want to get to on what are some of you talk about a lot of the benefits of doing it the way you did it, which I call it the hard way. Without as much outside capital and bootstrapping and owner financing. But I want to hear some what was hard about it, what was painful about doing it that way. Because I mentioned to you before, I was like, I heard your success, and of course, to me, it feels like it's an overnight success because I haven't talked to you for so long. But you're like, well, actually, it took 13 years to get to where we're at. Because I was like, I need to get out of the software business and start a DSO, and you're like, I don't know if you want to do that.
It's so true, man. You all know the how I built this podcast and the startup stories, the Guy Raz stories, man. I got that. The list of those stories is much longer than the list of successes, I will say. That's it, right? You got no capital. You're behind on bills. You're trying to be good. A good partner with your industry partners. You're trying to grow. You're trying to funnel the capital back into it. You're not taking paychecks. You go home and your wife's got to text you to make sure that you've got money for groceries. And that happens for a long time. That's not like a 6-month thing. That's years, right, of doing that. I remember one time I was watching the payroll account every 2 weeks, making sure we had enough money. I wasn't taking a paycheck, and there was one Thursday afternoon where we weren't going to have enough money to make payroll. And I had, I think, 1 or 2 practices. It was very beginning. And the only thing I could think of, I don't know people with money. I don't have, parents with money or anything like that. And the only thing I could think of was to title loan my car. I'd go down to one of those title loan places on the corner. I remember standing in that title loan place with the title in my hand in my car. I got $3,000 at 3,000% interest. I went in and I put it into the bank account. Payroll cleared. Nobody ever knew. But I remember standing in that title loan place being like, if I make it, I will never forget this moment. I'll never forget how I feel right now of it's all on the table, right? It's all out there. I drained through my savings, drained through my bank account, and I was behind on bills. So those stories are real. And I frankly wouldn't ever recommend somebody doing it the way that I've done it because there is so much at risk. I think, when I started out, I was living in my parents' basement. I just heard my first kid. I didn't have a job. I was like, man, what do I got to lose, right? And so I went for it. But I do believe that's part of long-term success, whether you're hyper-funded at the beginning or bootstrapping. I really believe that perseverance is the greatest attribute in long-term success, because I should have gone out of business several times. Like I shouldn't be sitting here today having done what we've done. But that willingness to never quit, I think, makes up for a lot of maybe other attributes I don't have. Just relentless.
I freaking love that title alone story. It was
good.
like, because Brandon at Weave has those same style of stories,
Yeah,
right? Where he
sold
like
his cars.
freaking liquidated his 401k to pay developers to get the first version going. His wife like is hiding cash in the closet because she's worried she's not going to have enough for food. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, entrepreneurs are a bunch of idiots.
Well, and the craziest thing, you think you've actually kind of gotten through the storm a little bit, and COVID hits. And it's just like, oh crap. Like you go from like, holy cow, we made it through all that, right? Like that's something in the past, but the future's never certain, right? Like that's the thing. The future's never certain, and it's always all on the line. And there's a lot of character that gets built through those experiences, where it's just like, at that point in time, once COVID hit, it was like I had so many people depending on me to have bread on the table, and that was a distinct and overwhelming feeling. Because like in the startup stages, you're just hoping to survive and hoping to like make something for your family and do something for yourself. Well, once you've done that, there's this real weight that settles on your shoulders when you realize there are hundreds of families that require and depend on you being a good steward of capital, you being a good steward of principles and values, you being a good individual and driving good culture and all the things. And that's a different weight. And when you have to look at 300 of them and say, we've got to furlough you because we're being shut down because we're not, essential healthcare. One of the most chilling days of my life, honestly.
Oh, it's so rough, and I totally sympathize with you in that position. I made so many mistakes at Weave, and I think in the early days, I think I was definitely a lot more careless and didn't realize it wasn't until we had spent too much money and had to do a layoff that I was like, oh, we as an executive team screwed up. We spent too much money, and now because of our screw up, these 10 families or whatever now get punished because of us. It still hurts, like I'm trying not to cry, because it's like, that sucks. And then it puts a lot of pressure on right after that. You're like, I don't want to make those mistakes again, because I don't want to have this terrible impact on other people's families. And so, I feel that weight that you feel, and obviously you're in the thick of it still, but thankfully doing very well. But a lot more employees now under the Platinum banner, so it's really exciting. And a lot of pressure.
So Vince, I just want to congratulate you again, man. It's so awesome what you've accomplished, and I love the values that you've maintained throughout. It's just phenomenal. So to wrap things up, if you don't mind, tell us about some of the plans for future growth and scalability. Sounds like you're aiming to do 20 new offices a year. Tell us a little about some of the plans, and then maybe finish with some of advice that you would give someone that's in a similar situation where you are now and where you have been.
We're going to add like 20 locations a year. We plan to maintain 10% plus same-store growth and to continue to scale up. Our capital partners are phenomenal. They're familiar with the multi-site business. They've owned another dental business. The brand Jimmy John's, so their name's Main Post Partners. They've been phenomenal partners. They've given me a lot of latitude to continue to run the business without a lot of disruption on their end in terms of they've had a lot of support and value, but in the end they've let me continue to do what we do best. So that's been very helpful. And we'll continue to do this. I'm 41. I don't have it in me to go do another startup, so I will be here as long as I can be. And we're building the real estate side of the business. We didn't sell any of that, and so for us, as we continue to buy practices, we've got a real estate portfolio that's scaling up and growing, and hired employees over there to run that company while I continue to be the CEO here. And we think that the real estate value will, potentially eventually eclipse the value of the actual dental operations. So it's fun to still be entrepreneurial and doing something, but also be having to reinvent myself as this higher growth CEO, and that's been a lot of fun. So those are some of the plans, and then advice for people who are doing it. One of the mistakes I see most commonly is I did this for years, is I had my head on a swivel. So I was like, what are they doing? Oh, they're doing pedo work. Oh, that looks nice. Oh, now the new implant, centers, the all on fours. It's like a space race. Everybody's going into that. And I always was like, oh, maybe I should be doing something different. I think the best advice anybody can have is choose what you're going to do, right, and be excellent at that. And don't try to be all things to all people. Don't go out and buy the ortho office, the pedo office, and the general office, and the OS office. And it's like, again, I shouldn't say don't do that. There are groups out there that are doing that, and I'm sure they're doing fine. I think you will be at a significant disadvantage in this new world of AI if you don't get really strong standardizations and SOPs operating within a single function of the dental business, not so many different functions of the dental business, because there's massive AI leverage in the future for those who have gone through the pain up front of switching softwares, getting onto one software, having the same language, training the same way, because you're going to be able to train virtual agents to execute on a lot of administrative burden tasks if you can actually teach it your workflows. And it's extremely hard to do that when you've got a bunch of different business models within one business model, and which is how I view that. And for me, that's, I would say today, if you're starting today, pay the price up front, standardized, be documented in your operations, and you're going to be way more capital efficient by leveraging AI than those who don't.
It's great advice.
Yeah. Well, Vince, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your story with us. I'm sure this will inspire some people because it really is amazing. And just so fun to see the success that you've been able to attain at this point. You've had your scars along the way, which makes it even more fulfilling and more amazing where you are today. So congratulations. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you to our listeners for listening in on this episode of Dental Disruptors Podcast. And we hope to have you guys join us again soon. Vince, thanks so much again.
Thank you, guys.